To the 16th Annual Library Legislative Breakfast for Senator Rosenberg's district, co-sponsored by the Greenfield Community College Library and the Friends of the Western Massachusetts Regional Library System. These breakfasts, as you folks know, are a great opportunity for us librarians and library supporters to get together with our elected officials and to thank them for all the wonderful support that they've given to us in the past year. And this year in particular, we have a tremendous amount to thank you for. And it's also an opportunity for us to speak with them about some of the issues that we're facing every day in our libraries. And there's still plenty of issues that we're facing every single day. My name is Eric Poulin, and I realized as I was getting this little greeting together that I'm here today representing or a part of a few groups, and I'm very excited to tell you about each of those groups and some of the great work that's going on with each of them. I'm a member of the executive board of the Massachusetts Library System. Very proud to say that. You'll hear from Greg Pronovitz in a little bit, and he will tell you about some of the remarkable work that he and his staff have done over the past year. I'm also here as a representative of the Friends of the Western Mass Regional Library System, Friends of Wormels, who are called that for the time being because we're undergoing a very exciting change right now. We are currently merging with the Western Massachusetts Library Club, which is an organization that's been around since 1898, to form one solid and committed advocacy group surrounding issues facing libraries in Western Massachusetts. Lynn Kleinist is here. She'll be speaking to you a bit later on to tell you about some of the great things that are going on with that. In my heart of hearts, I am still the past president of the late, great Western Massachusetts Regional Library System, which we sadly said goodbye to this year, and it's a loss that we're still having a hard time coming to terms with. But we librarians in the West are committed to looking towards the future, and we're looking forward to working with the state library system to make it the best system that it could possibly be for all libraries. But the thing that I'm most proud of, or the group that I'm most proud to be a part of, is I'm very proud to say that I'm the coordinator of library services here at Greenfield Community College. The work that's done at this school, the opportunities that are given to our students, the lives that are changed here every single day, the stories that are told on this campus, it's really mind-blowing. It's staggering, and I really can't believe the work that goes on here every single day. We provide access, opportunity, and excellence to so many people who normally wouldn't otherwise have these things offered to them. And we do it here in the most rural and the poorest county in the Commonwealth. So welcome. Welcome to Franklin County. Welcome to Greenfield. Welcome to GCC. Likewise, like GCC, each and every one of our small libraries in this area are agents of change and make a difference every single day in the lives of their residents. Life-changing work goes on in each and every one of our libraries. These are some of the smallest communities in the Commonwealth that we're in, and our libraries are really the lifeblood of each and every one of our towns, and they're filled with staff who are smart, creative, caring, resourceful, and really tough, and are really committed to making a positive change in their communities. Positive change is happening in libraries like Betty Johnson's library in Coleraine. Hey, Betty. Coleraine's a community where the majority of the residents don't have high-speed internet access. Most of them are still using dial-up. But patrons of her library can go to her library and access public computers for free that have DSL, where they can do things like look for jobs, update their resumes, take an online class, or just read the news, or learn to read, or just play a game. The residents of her community have access to that because of Betty and her staff and her library. Something that we take for granted, something so simple, is such an important thing for people in Coleraine. Communities are being built, and connections are made, and friendships are being made in Deb Kern's library in Northfield. Where are you, Deb? Oh, there you are. Of course. Deb shared a story with me about an out-of-towner who came into her library looking for information about local hiking trails. And Deb was able to provide this person with maps of all the hiking trails in the area. But not only that, patrons overheard this conversation, and staffers overheard this conversation, and people came out to this person and offered their own stories and their own advice of what the best trails were in the area, and actually offered to take this person out on the trails. These are the kind of things, the kind of real community building things that happen every day in our libraries. And lives are literally saved in our libraries every single day. In Suzanne Susie's library in Montague, hey Sue, she recently shared a story with me about a woman who was a patron at her library who had just moved back to the area from the Midwest. She had been in a very, very abusive relationship. And she was homeless, living in the homeless shelter, and really pretty much down and out. Essentially had no money for anything and lived off of really garbage junk food and really had nowhere to go. But she was a regular patron at Sue's library. Sue's staff took interest in this person, and every time that this woman would come in, they would ask her, have you sought out any help through social services? Have you looked for a place to live? Have you tried to get yourself an apartment? And they would sit down every day with this person and appraise and tell them about various opportunities that existed for this person. Eventually, they were able to find her an apartment that she could afford. She was able to get her life back together, get a job, move into a nicer apartment, start eating healthier food. Her whole life is literally changed because Sue's staff, who I'm going to guess probably was making not a whole heck of a lot of money, took the time to care about this person. These are the things that go on every single day in our libraries. And we're very, very blessed at GCC to have such a great relationship with Sharon Cherry and the GPL and her wonderful staff there, and you'll hear from her in a little bit as well. These things go on every day, but they can't go on without your help and without your support, and we thank you so much for everything that you have done for us. I'm going to step aside in a minute, and I'm going to let the rest of the program happen, but just one final thing I would just like to say to our elected officials. And I guess I'm not going to sugarcoat this at all. But this past year was really devastating for our libraries. The loss of the Western region, the consolidation to a state system, while the state system is doing the absolute best that it can, it is understaffed and it is underfunded, and they're working very hard. It was a loss that was really tragic for all of us. And as this consolidation was happening, we looked to you and asked you for your help and asked you for your support. And you listened to us, and you responded to us, and you fought on our behalf. We weren't able to save the Western region, but a compromise was worked out, and you were able to provide us with some of the tools that we need in order to do our jobs and in order to help build our communities. On behalf of every single librarian and library user in this room, I just want to say thank you, thank you, thank you, and we will never forget everything you did for us this past year. And on that note, I've said enough, and I will step aside and let the rest of our program happen. However, I'd just like to take a quick opportunity to introduce someone who, it is a pleasure for me to introduce this person because it's a common complaint among academic librarians, and we academic librarians do talk, right, Barbara Wurtzel? Yeah. We do communicate, and it's a common complaint amongst academic librarians that our administration doesn't quite get what we do. They don't understand the role that we play on campus. They don't get our significance. And we're very blessed here at GCC that that is not at all the case whatsoever. Our administration are our biggest champions. They're our biggest cheerleaders, and we're very blessed to have them. And the gentleman I'm going to introduce right now really stands up for GCC and everything that it's all about. And he's a heck of a nice guy, too. So please welcome the president of Greenfield Community College, Mr. Bob Pura.
You did a great job with that.
So good morning. I know you have a lot of people to listen to. I do want to welcome our legislative delegation. We know in this room that when you look at numbers, the odds literally are against their voice. I remember introducing a former board chair, Pat Crossan, to Wayne Burton, who was president of North Shore, and he talked about the 26 who are members of their legislative delegation in the North Shore. 26 voices, 26 votes. When we think about the number of folks, we have to admire, respect, and really hold in very high regard the way in which these folks work on our behalf with very few numbers, but very strong, powerful voices. So we want to say thank you. You take care of and lead and provide for lots of services in your area. And we know that libraries, education, the arts are among some of those things that you hold nearest and dearest to your hearts. The economic development of our community always coincides with the social development of our community for our legislators. I think that reflects the values of our community very well. Having said all that, I do want to recognize Eric and all of the librarians of this college in the way that they do work with and share and help to support all of the libraries of Western Massachusetts. Just as the library is, as Eric said, the heart and soul of this institution, as you will see, which will become part of the way in which the building reflects that value soon when we open up the new core. So too do the libraries in the communities that you serve reflect the heart and soul of your community. So thank you for all the work that you do. I love the stories, Eric, that you just told about those folks. I didn't know one of them. I now know them, and I think to get those stories out, just a very important part of this day, a very important part of what I think we all need to do together is get all those stories out about just the kind of blood that does develop and breathe and travel through the doors of your library. So, welcome to this college and welcome to this day, and thank you again to our legislators.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Greg Pronovitz, the Executive Director of the Massachusetts Library System, and I want to thank Eric and the planning group for this committee for inviting me here today. And thanks to all library supporters and representatives who could join us today, and senators. The MLS, Massachusetts Library System, is a statewide organization with a mission to provide services to over 1,700 libraries throughout the Commonwealth, libraries of all types, all sizes, and all geographic locations, and we are committed to doing that. And watching from the sidelines of a former Northeast region employee during the whole planning process, I was impressed and overwhelmed by the advocacy that came out here in the western part of the state. And I encourage you to continue that advocacy on behalf of your fellow libraries in the future. You did a great job. And just to start out, I want to say that we are also committed to having 2 locations for our organization. We have one in Waltham now, and that's kind of a temporary location. We're going to be moving a little bit further west with that one, somewhere to the vicinity of I-90 and I-495 in the spring. But we also have a location in Whately, and we are meeting with realtors now to find a tenant to use the surplus space there to make it a cost-effective location for the Massachusetts Library System for the foreseeable future. We also were very excited to see the level funding in the House 1 budget for the MLS services, and we assume that the governor recognized the 29% cut that we went through last year. We're hoping that that can hold out through the rest of what we call the budget roller coaster ride. As we started MLS in July, I wanted to talk about some of the accomplishments that Eric has observed as a board member, and Betty Johnson also observed as a board member, and Catherine Utt, our business manager, and Mary King, one of our advisors, observed as staff members. We've provided training to over 2,000 individuals throughout the state. We provided advisory services to over 800 libraries throughout the state. We provided a summer reading program for over 100,000 individuals throughout the state. We're planning with the Massachusetts Board of Library Commissioners, the Mass Broadband Institute, and CW Mars to work with 126 library locations in Western Massachusetts to help bring fiber optic telecommunications capability through some stimulus funding that came from the federal government. We're in the planning for that. We're waiting for the Mass Broadband Institute to tell us what the next step is. They're doing some contracting. We've also contributed or provided support to libraries for resource sharing. We're on track for doing delivery for somewhere between 15 and 16 million items this year statewide. And we're working with a statewide planning group to further fine-tune library delivery service to reduce the workload in each library to make that happen. So I'm going to thank you once again for having me, and thank you all for your support.
Thank you all so much for coming today. This is a pretty cool turnout. Thank you, Senator Rosenberg and representatives. Thank you so much for coming. It really means a lot. I'm Sharon Sherry. I'm director of the Greenfield Public Library, and I'm the president of CW Mars this year. So I'm here to talk about CW Mars. I want to talk about the importance of line 9506 to CW Mars libraries. Our member libraries have been hurt severely by the reductions of MBLC budget line 9506, which supports library technology and resource sharing. This line has been cut by 56% over the past decade, despite large increases in library usage during the same period. For example, last fiscal year, CW Mars library patrons borrowed over 12 million items and received over 1.37 million items from collections outside their home library. So what does being a member of CW Mars allow libraries to do? CW Mars provides patrons with superior access to library services through shared collections, a shared integrated library system, shared information technology services, shared ebook, e-audiobook, e-video services, and shared digitization services. Also, many libraries would still be checking out items by hand if it were not for automated networks like CW Mars. Thank God we're not doing that anymore. CW Mars also provides high-speed broadband connections to member libraries. And as you know, this is important because many parts of Western Mass do not have access to this, leaving expensive data circuits as the only alternative. One more function of line 9506 is to fund the Small Libraries and Networks grant program, which this program assists small libraries and communities under 10,000 to become circulating members of CW Mars. And this helps them as much as it helps the bigger libraries. It's important to expand this program because there's another 30 small libraries out there in Western Mass that could benefit from this program. And again, that would benefit us as well. And what happens when line 9506 gets cut? It means higher fees for member libraries. And I know as director of the Greenfield Public Library, I cannot afford higher fees for anything else, including this extremely valuable service. So I am asking that you please support the MBLC's legislative agenda, which calls for increasing line 9506 to $7.4 million for next fiscal year. Thank you, guys.
Good morning, and again, thank you, Representative Senator Rosenberg, for attending this morning. I'm Lynn Kleindienst. I am the secretary for the Friends of the Western Mass Regional Library System. That is what it is still known as right now. We are, however, morphing, and in December, the Western Mass Library Club voted to merge with us. And that is an organization that has a history that goes back well over 100 years, but they have the same focus and the same interests as the Friends. So we are in the process of changing our name. We are also in the process of developing a new mission statement, which may change our focus a little bit. And we are also developing new bylaws, which will govern the operation of the group. The tentative name now, as Eric mentioned, is Western Mass Library Advocates. You've heard the word advocacy several times here this morning. And when we mulled around what names we might play with, what names we might want, it really came down to we are advocates, and we should simply take that route and simplify and not get too deep into it. This past year, in October, when we had our annual meeting, we were overwhelmed by the sentiment that we did need to go on. So we are going on, as I've indicated. We have put out, which I hope many of you did receive this past week, a newsletter which does detail many of our activities over the last year. We helped in the dispersal of the Durkin Fund, wherein 58 libraries with populations under 3,000 received a considerable amount of money for their collections, for their collection development. We also sponsor these legislative breakfasts, and we are very happy to do that. That is something that we have been doing for a number of years. And one of the big things coming up, you probably saw one of these flyers out on the table outside, is the bus to Legislative Day, March 28th. And we certainly hope that many of you will be able to attend and speak with your representatives and your senators on that date. If you need a copy of this, or you want to get in contact with the person and you don't have a copy, you can contact Lynn Coakley at Springfield Technical Community College. On April 12th, we are going to be holding a general meeting of the membership to approve the name change, the mission statement, and the bylaws. That will be a business meeting in the morning. And that meeting is going to be held at the MLS in Whately. The afternoon session, we are very happy to say, Greg Pronovitz will be coming and attending and giving the folks a more in-depth overview of what has been going on with MLS and how it is supporting us here in the Western Massachusetts area and our libraries, which is very important for us to keep these lines of communication open with the staff at MLS. One other thing which I don't want to neglect, thanks to Lynn Coakley and Jan Resnick, the library blog is back up. It's at wormelsblogspot.com. So the One blog, the Library One blog, is back up, and you are encouraged to take a look at it and participate in it. We also have a founding membership opportunity, which is really kind of an open-ended. If you would like to become a member of the Western Mass Library Advocates, a donation based on what you can give would be appreciated, and you will be a member and receive any communications from us. Okay? Thank you very much, and thank you again for attending.
It's now time to meet our elected officials, and I'm not certain in what order you folks want to go at it, so I'll step aside. I'll let you guys draw straws. Eeny, meeny, miny, mo, rock, paper, scissors. Okay, fair enough. Please welcome Senator Stan Rosenberg, everyone.
Says I'm older. Feeling it this morning. So true. Good morning. Mr. President, thank you for welcoming us here and providing this space for us to meet in, and we're going to have to increase your budget so we can get a little heat in this. Libraries, heat. Bob Gert is really an amazing leader, and we're really lucky to have you here in the county and here in Western Massachusetts. A leader like him, it's no surprise then that we have great people like Regina Curtis, who's here somewhere, who does the community and development work for the college, and Eric, you are absolutely awesome. For a 16-year-old, you give a hell of a speech. So I also wanted to give a special recognition very early on to Steve for the leadership that he provided last year. He took the lead in the House on trying to work out the language and compromising all of the challenges in his position as Assistant Vice Chair Ways and Means, and then he put some tremendous effort into that, got something really solid together, and then Steve Brewer and I worked it on the Senate side to try to keep it in the budget, et cetera, and I think we got the best result that we could get under the circumstances. We regretted very much that, that situation, we were not able to prevent it from happening, but as usual, the library community, you are the living example of a gentler and kinder nation, because even in the hardest times, you guys are civil, you guys are always thinking about other people and trying to figure out, without being, rude or crazy or whatever, how to solve a problem. And this was a very difficult situation. This was really a major institution that you all relied on. First of all, you built and you relied on, and you were watching it being sort of torn away from you. And you respectfully worked your hearts out to try to keep it together, and you were open-minded enough, and you were strong enough leaders that you recognized that if we couldn't save it, we had to change it, and we had to find a way. And so we got a result that is something that isn't what we would like or prefer to have had, but it is now we have, and you're moving on to the next stage and trying to figure out how to use this to service your libraries and, more importantly, the patrons of the communities you serve. So I congratulate you and thank you again for the kind of leadership you show. And I put on my Facebook last night that this morning I was going to one of my very favorite events every year. Some of you are on my Facebook. Do I have a few friends in this room? If you're not, go to Facebook and put my name in. I'm in there somewhere. And we'd love to have you on our Facebook. But I put that I was going to one of my favorite events every year, which is this library breakfast at one of my favorite institutions, GCC. And so we're gathering this morning in yet another of a series of very difficult budget years. We're hoping that this year will be the last of the worst, and that the following year will be better, and then by the year after that we'll be back where we need to be in terms of being able to rebuild and restore stuff. We're facing in excess of $1 billion structural deficit this year. All the federal money that they sent down to help us hold our budget together over the last 3 fiscal years, it's gone. And we still have some money in our rainy day fund. We were at $2.4 billion, and now we're down to about $700 million. So this is going to be another very, very challenging budget cycle. But we can actually see the light at the end of the tunnel at this point. We know that we can see the flicker of that little candle there. So we know we're getting close to the end of this, but we're not quite there yet. So it's going to be a real struggle this year. I wanted to take a minute and sort of divert our attention for just a second to 2 initiatives that I want to bring to your attention that I'm going to be working on, and which can impact us in the long run. For those of us who believe in public services in general, that government can do good work, but can't do any good work, any work at all, if you don't have the revenue to do it. And I decided this year to bite the bullet, and I filed a proposed constitutional amendment to create graduated income tax assessments. It may not seem on point, but it is actually part of what I think we need to do to try to put this Commonwealth on a better course. And that is, our Constitution prohibits us from having graduated taxes, which means that in this day and age, when middle and low-income people's incomes have stagnated, and their tax burden is a larger share of their diminishing income, even as the top 2 or 3% of the population are becoming increasingly wealthier millionaires and even billionaires. And we need to change the tax system in order to have a more equitable tax scheme so that we can fund these necessary public services. So it's a 4-year process at minimum to change the Constitution, This has been tried and gotten on the ballot a couple of times over the last 40 years or so, unsuccessfully. Didn't get through and be voted by the people. I'm sorry, it was on the ballot, but it was not approved by the people. So I'm going to hope that you will all do your homework and think about this and realize that this could be part of the path to improving our situation in general, and the library community could be a beneficiary of this change. And the second thing that I want to say is that I have also filed again, but now we actually have a coalition building around this, some proposed changes on the regulatory side and a constitutional amendment to change the number of signatures required to get a ballot question on the ballot. When the standard was set in 1950, it took significantly more signatures than it takes today to put a question on the ballot, even though the population has increased dramatically. We have the lowest standard in the country to put a question on the ballot. So every 2, 3, 4, whatever, every election or every other election, we are fighting another ballot question to cut taxes dramatically, and we have to spend an enormous amount of political capital, time, effort, and to just hold on to the revenue that we have. And we need to stop letting people abuse the system. And those aren't the only ballot questions that are abusive, because many of the ballot questions that actually appear in the Massachusetts ballot are actually being put on by people from other states. They're financing putting ballot questions on our ballot in order to try to use Massachusetts, which is a bellwether state, to make movements of their issues across the country. I think that's an abuse of our system. These ballot initiatives were supposed to be a grassroots tool for people to create laws that they want, that the legislature refuses to create, or to change laws that they think are unfair or unreasonable that the legislature is creating. And it's supposed to be grassroots, and it's supposed to be your own people, and it's supposed to be you out on the street corners, not paid signature gatherers paid for by people from other states. And so I filed 2 bills. One would change the number of signatures to go back to the standard where we were in the 50s. And the second is to regulate signature gatherers, because we can't prevent it. Courts have said we can't prevent people from doing it because it's a violation of their free speech. So, but we can regulate it. And so we want disclosure, we want to adopt the best standards that other states are using to manage and regulate these signature gatherers and the information that's provided and to prevent fraud. So while neither of those might appear to be library initiatives, I believe that both have potential impact on the library. Then in closing, I'll just say that as usual, we will work as hard as we can to try to protect, preserve, and enhance your line items. It will be difficult, extremely difficult, but we will do our best to do that, and there is light at the end of this tunnel. First and foremost, because the economy is improving, tax revenues are increasing, they're just not increasing fast enough to close that gap. But we're getting to the point where that gap's going to disappear. And secondly, that I enlist your help and support in these other initiatives that would add some more light at the end of the tunnel by helping us make some changes that I think would be for the benefit of the people of the Commonwealth, including your patrons. Thank you.
Thank you, Stan. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I'm not surprised to see such a great turnout here this morning because, you know, it's one of the coldest days of the year. I think it was 8 below in Amherst. 14, where was that? Who said Amherst? In Amherst, wow. Maybe you should get a different thermometer, that's kind of scary. But I'm not surprised you're all here because one of the things we discovered last year in the battles we fought together to preserve the regional library system is that you are the hardiest people and the most dedicated people to your cause. supporting libraries, working in libraries, and trustees. You all do a great job. Thank you for that. And I appreciate your good words, Eric, about the effort we did last year, and I totally agree with Stan. I think it was a battle worth fighting, and we came out with something which is positive now, and everyone is moving forward in a spirit of a new beginning. So I appreciate what Greg said about the commitment to the maintaining a presence in Whately, serving all of our libraries here in Western Massachusetts, and the new configuration of the support network. The advocates sounds great to me. I look forward to being a part of that, working with all of you. I want to take a minute also to recognize some legislative aides who are here representing their legislators. There are a number of legislative breakfasts that go on this time of year, as you know. That's why you have yours right before we enter budget season. So they're pulled in different directions, but the fact that they've sent their staff to be here shows you that they are really committed to libraries. And first up, let me recognize Bob Judge from Representative John Steinbeck's office. I have to say that I appreciated Stan's words about the work we did in the House last year on your behalf. John was right there in the trenches with me every step of the way. In fact, he probably took a little more abuse than I did. He was a little more up front as I was doing my work in Ways and Means. So thank you, Bob, for being here. And Brian is here from Representative Denise Andrews, one of our new and Steve, where's Steve? From Representative Paul Marks' office. Oh, there you go. Thank you all for being here. We've had quite a bit of turnover in our legislative delegation in the Franklin County area this year, in Berkshire County. And Paul and Denise have hit the ground running, and we're really glad to have them on board. And there's another library breakfast going on this morning at the same time for Senator Downing's district. And part of my district is in his district as well. So I know I have some people at that one in Adams. And your boss may be there. That's probably where he is. So at any rate, thank you for coming here and representing your bosses and relaying this information back to them. Let me just echo what Stan had to say about the budget. I have either the distinct pleasure or its punishment to be on Ways and Means again this year. But I'm looking forward to it because we are facing a very difficult year, but we are seeing light at the end of the tunnel. We do have revenues coming in a little bit higher than we have over the last 3 years, which really were the worst budget years, I think, in anyone's memory. There's certainly anyone that's still serving in the legislature that have been through that cycle of recession that seemed to happen every 8 to 10 years or so. The stimulus money was a lifesaver, but it is gone this year as we go into fiscal year 12. So that just maintaining what we've had throughout the budget is really not going to be possible because we have about $1.5 billion. Stan was being kind when he said $1 billion. It's probably closer to $1.5 billion that we have to find somewhere in order to sustain services. And we're being, a lot of our spending is being driven by increased healthcare costs. Healthcare was, I think about 15 or 20 years ago, it was somewhere around 20 or 25% of the state budget. It's now in the vicinity of 40% of the state budget. And that includes health care not just for state employees and the health insurance they have, but certainly for all of the people who come under Medicaid, Mass Health, and all of the different assistance programs that we have. So it's a cost driver in your family budgets and your town budgets. Managing your libraries is something you have to deal with. We have to deal with it too. So this year we're embarking on a very aggressive effort led by President Murray in the Senate, I think, to try to control healthcare costs as much as we can from the top down. And in the House, I think we're also, you've probably heard a lot about giving more authority to local officials for plan design to try to control costs at the local level. And we're working on that. I'm hoping we are able to come to some resolution of that longstanding problem this year. And I think that would be very helpful, actually, in your local budgets as well. And could hopefully steer some more money from the local side to your library budgets. But we're going to be very challenged with the budget. It's important that you continue your advocacy, come down to the State House on your advocacy day, make your pitch. I appreciate the fact that we were asked to try to increase one of the line items from last year, and I have to agree with Stan, that's going to be very, very difficult. This is in many ways a holding year for us to try to maintain what we've got already, not step back anymore. It's very good that the governor put a budget out that level funds your accounts. We'll try to do the same if we can increase it somehow. If we can give you other tools that might be helpful, we'll look at those as well. But it is going to be a tough year. I don't want to hold out any hopes that we're going to see increases this year, but hopefully next year, the year after, we'll be able to rebuild, restore, and get back to the type of support that I think the state should be providing to our libraries, because they do mean so much to people. Those stories we heard earlier really touch it at the very heart of what libraries do in our communities, and I thank you for those stories there. So that's my happy message, but I'm really glad that we're all here, glad for the work you do. Thank you very much for that, and look forward to any questions or comments you might have in that part of the program. Thanks.
Thanks for your comments, Rep. Kulik, which I'll pass back to Rep. Savick. As you know, those of you who work with Rep. Savick would know a stronger supporter of libraries in Western Mass, so please, I see Jane Babcock and Natalie Jo from South Hadley is here. Please stay in touch with our office at all times about issues of concern. Thank you.
I'm the aide for Representative Paul Marr. He couldn't be here right now. He's at the event in the Berkshires. But he does have 7 communities in Franklin County, 3 in Hampshire, and then another 12 in the Berkshires. So as the member with the largest district in the state, he often dispatches me to come to events. But thanks for having us. And as somebody who has 5 college degrees, Rep. Mark really understands the importance of education and the role of libraries in it. So as a freshman rep, he's very much in the learning phase of getting on the job. So events like this really help us to understand the backdrop of where libraries are at so he can move forward in his job. And I don't have a whole lot to say about legislation currently. I think the incumbents have hit that very well, but I did want to share 2 experiences from the campaign trail that have really helped to shape our views towards libraries. The first was that we talked to a couple who both of them were librarians, and they said, hey, we really support your candidacy, but we can't even spare $5 to contribute because we don't know if our jobs are going to be around come the next fiscal year. And it's that kind of potential for instability in government that really affects not only people's jobs, but the indirect spending that contributes to economic activity. And the other being that somebody said to me, people in the cities, poor people in the cities, they have a lot of social networks. They have transportation, they have shelters, all kinds of things that people can look to. But the rural poor don't have those kinds of networks. And for them, libraries are really the only source of entertainment, education, and social support. And so, especially here in Western Mass, we can't see libraries cut. So those 2 experiences really demonstrated to Rep. Mark and me that the state policy, it's not crafted in a vacuum, that it really has a direct impact on people's lives, socially and economically. So we try to keep that in mind when we talk about what bills are coming forward in the budget especially. So thank you, and I really look forward to hearing from folks after the program and being able to take that back to Rep. Mark.
Representative Andrews, there's not much more to say, but the most important thing to say is thank you to all of you for the very important services you provide in our communities. you're often the front line of a social service program that provides a safe and warm place for many of our residents, beyond the opportunities for learning and connections to jobs. So Denise is a very big supporter of libraries and the work that you do, and she's very grateful. I'm sure she wishes she could be here today. Thank you.
At this time, we'd like to open up the floor for any questions or comments from audience members to any of our elected officials or their aides.
Where does the library construction money fall in the big picture? Will it still be available down the line?
Okay, the capital, that's in the capital budget, and there is a certain amount of authorization made available by the legislature. The governor releases it year by year based upon how much he thinks we can afford within the capital budget. When the allocation runs out, the authorization runs out, then we have to put in more money in the account. I don't remember now, maybe somebody else in the room will remember what the balance is and whether it's time to renew that account. But we've never failed to renew the account. It takes a year or two sometimes, and so there can be a little gap. But the program's about 22 years old, and we've built or reconstructed probably 100 libraries by now, maybe more. So I know there are communities in Franklin County that are working on their projects, and when there's money needed, we will make sure there's money in the account. You're welcome.
I'm the library director of the Collin Library. We have 3 part-time staffers who, between them, have a total of 5 advanced degrees. 4 of them in early childhood education, and they all make less than $12. They're making less than the equivalent positions that were in place when I took over the library in 2007. I want to give also the other thing that's important to me is that we have almost 1 volunteer hour for every paid staff hour. So I know it's said all the time, but we push every dollar so hard. And when there's something beyond heat or the books that we absolutely have to buy, we just started a program called Music for Little Ones. The first day that we ran the program, 1 kid came. The second day that we ran the program, 20 kids came and their parents. The third day, it was up to something like 25. I would suggest that it's not just a program for children, it's also a program that socializes parents and brings people into the library and provides a real lifelong framework for understanding how parents and children and the community interacts together for those young families. At Forbes Library, I deliver books to people that are shut-ins or in nursing homes. Of the people that I deliver books to that are shut-ins, I would say that that is one service that allows people to stay in their homes for a little bit longer rather than going into nursing homes. Both of those programs are on the margin of the library's core services. And I thought long and hard about spending the $50 that it cost me to run Music for Little Ones because that's how tight our budgets are. I understand that I'm preaching for the choir, but I want to thank you guys for keeping it together enough that we were able to do that. And I want you to know that that's how hard we work to be good stewards of the money that we're afforded.
I'd just like to make a comment along that line. I think that most library staff members realize that librarians are really, really good at making money go a very long way. And I think that in some ways, because we've proven that we can do that, we get hit repeatedly because we've proven we can do that. But any more than you are already doing. So I really appreciate that you went to fight for us, and I really appreciate last spring when everything exploded and voices were raised. I was so proud to be a Western Mass Library Director. And I was so proud of Eric when he got up at the MBLC meeting and just told it like it was. You could hear it in his voice, like you can hear it in mine. You know, you could hear his throat just tighten up because there's so much emotion behind this, because we are a different animal. Libraries in Western Mass have unique needs, and we need all of your help, and we appreciate it. But I would like to say that we're at the end. We don't have any more to give. So thank you very much.
I would like to thank Senator Rosenberg for his leadership and Sarah McKee for the Jones and Ehlers. I'd like to thank Ms. Dan for your leadership in the graduated tax constitutional amendment. That is absolutely vital, and I appreciate your forward thinking, your frankness, and your deep, deep, deep concern for the people you represent.
Fulfilling a promise to one of our patrons. In addition to our reduced budgets and expanded services as our needs of our communities grow, this year the Public Libraries of Massachusetts became the official tax form providers for the Commonwealth. In cutting budget and saving money, the Department of Revenue has put the burden of providing tax instructions and forms on public libraries. And people will come in, waving a letter or pointing to the form and says, we can go to our public libraries and get these instructions. It says right here. Well, they sent us reproducible tax form instructions. We charge people to make copies. We have to make ends meet. And people are very upset to find out that they have to pay $3.40 at 10 cents a page to print out a 34-page instruction booklet. And this is a burden that I think was cut from the state budget. It was passed on to the community, but the public libraries are the people that are going in front of this. And for my staff and for some of our patrons who got upset, I promised them that I would bring the message to the legislature.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. We did not know that. One of the reasons forums like this are so important. That is nothing that went through the legislature, I assure you. That I'm sure was an administrative decision by the executive branch. And it's outrageous. I agree with you, absolutely. So we'll take that back and try to find out who's responsible for it and bring it up. But thanks for mentioning it.
And I can tell you, we get tons of calls. Do you have the forms yet?
Really? Okay.
Yeah, and they're very slowly.
And so people are receiving information in the mail that you have the forms, is that right?
If you look at the state booklet, it just has the forms in it. It says, if you want the instructions,
Okay.
go to your library.
Okay.
It's not easy, not so easy for libraries. We used to just have a print book every year. Now you have to put in a request to get all the papers that you want. Otherwise, you might not get them. People yesterday, a person went 3 different libraries before they knew one to get them.
Wow.
Plus, we received our box of forms, which in each packet of forms, there's no directions. But then in a separate packet, we received the reproducible direction. So I would love to have the money that they're wasting on these extra mailings go to the libraries.
Yeah. And are they mailing this to you, or they're using the regional library system, or the?
No, they mailed.
Because couldn't they distribute through your network that delivers to libraries if they? I mean, thinking in the future, it's too late for this.
These are boxes of big cartons of the
Okay, of the
instructions.
forms.
But the directions, they could have gone through them.
Yeah. Okay.
That was just an envelope, you know.
Okay.
And
a lot of people in Franklin County cannot go online to do their
Right.
tax forms. We're advised to say to people, well, you know you can go online, and they come to the library to go online, and we only give them an hour, and
Yeah.
it takes longer than that to get your preparation done.
Yeah. You know, since you mentioned online, I just might give you a quick update about what's going on with the broadband effort, because we had a briefing at the State House from the Mass Broadband Institute just a couple of days ago. And things are moving along very well at their end in terms of mapping out the middle mile project, as it's called. It's going to be a 1,300-mile backbone, fiber optic backbone, that goes through the 124 underserved and unserved communities. So each and every one of your communities, that backbone will come into points of presence within each community. There'll be libraries, a town hall, community health center, schools will be a point of service from which last mile providers will then be able to go out and connect homes and businesses. But it's essential that we build that middle mile network so that the last mile will have some place to connect to. And that will connect back to the now completed project on I-91 from the Connecticut border to the Vermont border, which is a fiber optic network. It's really sort of what they call the backhaul back to the major internet connection site in Springfield. So it's really moving ahead very well. We appropriated or authorized $40 million of state money 3 years ago. We got another $46 million of federal stimulus money to complete this. And MBI is currently negotiating all the telephone pole commitments and contracts with utilities. 30,000 poles have to be individually surveyed and arrangements made to connect put the wire physically there. That's going on well. They're about to have a network operator. They have already selected an owner's contract representative for the whole project. And under the terms of the federal stimulus grant, this has to be completed by June of 2011, end of June. And they feel very confident that they're going to meet that commitment. In the meantime, there are a number of initiatives going on for the last mile providers, including Wired West, which many of you might have heard about. Some of your town meetings are taking up warrant articles to really form Wired West for a subset of the 124 underserved communities, about 43 communities there. So a lot is happening, and there's going to be Western Mass Connect and the Broadband Institute are going to be having a last mile summit meeting on a Saturday morning in March. It's March 19th, I believe, at the Hotel Northampton, which is open to the public. And since many of you I know are concerned about getting broadband into your communities, into your libraries, if you don't have it, you may want to follow that. I think it'll be publicized through the MBI and the Western Mass Connect. So, thanks.
I'm glad you brought that up because that's another issue that CW Mars has got. The issue of cost I don't think has been addressed yet. What I'm talking about is that last mile getting to the libraries. So right now CW Mars is paying about $75 a pop per library, and from the numbers that I've seen, they're proposing $400 a pop for the lines that we would need so that the lines are not shared in all of this. CW Mars is not going to be able to handle that, and neither are the libraries. So I think while MBI is making a lot of promises, I don't think we're quite there yet. I think
so are they saying that's a cost estimate to connect you to the backbone as a point of service?
Exactly. Right now, I've got a $75 line, cable, beautiful.
Yeah.
Quite frankly, the difference between the cable and the fiber, if it means having to spend $400, I'm not going to do it.
Okay. Thanks.
And is that a one-time charge?
No, I would say per month, right?
Really?
It's a huge deal.
All right.
And we have free, we have through Comcast, educational, we have a free line, so we pay for our CW Mars pack, which we're required to do, but all other internet in the building comes from this free connection. So why would we want to give that up to pay another chunk?
Okay.
Yeah, I have kind of a minor point, but it's just another perspective on the importance of these libraries in Western Mass. I teach here at UCC, and we homeschool. And my son's 6.5 years old, and my wife homeschools him. The libraries, we live in one of the hill towns. The library is a critical resource for us. It allows her to educate our son. I would say that in every class I teach here, I have at least one homeschooled student, maybe one or two, who come from the towns. And that's just another population that relies intensively on the libraries, not only for the resources there. We check out all kinds of books, obviously, but also to go and use the internet connection to look things up, download lesson plans, to look at videos and things like that. So I know that there's a sizable population of homeschoolers out here in Western Mass that really, I don't know how visible they are on the statewide scene, but they're here and they need those libraries. And when hours get cut, that impairs their ability to educate their children. And I just want you to know that they're out there.
I also teach here. I'll piggyback on Trevor. I teach English courses here, and I teach online courses. And I want to let you know, too, from the perspective of teaching online courses, we couldn't do it without the libraries all over the region, because students are picking up their books and connecting online and getting help in person from all of you, while I'm sitting at the desk saying, go to your library, check this out, go online, check this database. We couldn't teach our online courses without you.
And let me just add one thing that I just heard the other day about small businesses and how they use libraries. Sometimes we think that libraries are only used by the elderly or those in school. Our local reporter told me that she is closing her office. She's spending one day in one library in her community, one day in another library in her community, and one day in the coffee shops in those two communities. That has happened for many, many years, and will continue to happen. And we should remember that the Digital Corporation sat in I believe it was the Concord Library, and decided how to develop their company. And that has happened many, many times. So it's business, small businesses often start in our libraries.
I'd like to also speak about how the community college libraries are supporting our general public as well as our students. We have a huge population in Springfield who are using our library resources because one of the library branches that's nearby has closed as they're being changed. So we're seeing, although I live in Northampton, I work at Springfield Technical Community College, and our patrons are not just our students. So, and I'm sure that's true for Greenfield as well.
Just another sidelight, we've even had students come to the library and take exams, but they're taking an online course over. And I had someone who just sat, and I was doing work, took an exam, and then I mailed it in. So it's another way, even though we're not using computers, we're still helping with the education system.
I have a money question about the governor's budget. We used to always hear, oh, the governor's budget, dead on arrival, don't pay any attention to the governor's budget. But it sounds like you all are fairly comfortable with the governor's budget, or am I mishearing? Is that likely to stay as a good basis for discussion?
It's a good basis for starting. It's the starting point of the process. And yeah, there are some parts of any budget that each of us are a little more attentive to or concerned about and we follow. So personally, I'm pleased at what the governor put out there for libraries. But whether that can be sustained through the budget process with the competing demands of all the other parts of the budget and the limited revenue resources that we have, that's what I need to convey. Yes, personally, I'm happy for what the governor has in there for libraries, but whether that is sustainable at the end of the process, we can't say.
So it doesn't depend on slot machines or anything?
No.
But it does depend on increases in fees, which may or may not survive.
That's right.
terms of not that anyone here needs to point out, but the irony that the state is sending out letters saying, go to your library for your tax forms and your instructions. We're not going to be able to do, we're going to make you copy them. But we're cutting down the hours that the libraries are open, so you can't actually get there after hours, because the library's only open one in Greenfield, only open one evening a week anymore. And, you know, most people are working. So we have one evening a week that you can come, and there's this presumption on the people writing that letter that libraries are just going to be there, and they're not.
In closing, I guess, I'd like to say thank you once again to our elected officials for being here today and for the aides who have come to join us. And thank you to each and every one of you for coming here today and sharing your stories and sharing your experiences and expressing your concerns to our officials.